Hey everybody, this is the Uncle Zed Hour. Hope everybody's doing well. Today I'd like to talk about something that I believe is going to be huge. Huge, huge, huge. Something called Bitcoin. A Bitcoin. What is a Bitcoin? Everybody seems to have their own opinion about it. But it's actually something pretty solid that's been around for a good 10 years. And people are seeing some astronomical returns on investment. So we're going to start at the very, 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 very beginning, just to give everybody kind of an overview of how Bitcoin came about, what it is, how you can spend it, all that good stuff, how you get it. But in order to do that, we kind of have to go way, way, way back in the days where we used to do something called bartering. And bartering was something that took place when two parties came to an agreement of sorts of a value of something that they owned. Now, how do you put a value on something that you own? For instance, how do you put a value on gold or platinum or dirt or a car? What is its intrinsic value? Why is it that you're being charged that? Quite simply, because there are people that are willing to pay that. That's it. If you're willing to pay, they'll charge you that. If you weren't willing to pay that, it would cost you less. So barter is how that all started. So let's take, for instance, somebody has a cow and you need a cow. And the only thing you have is maybe 5 or 6 trees that you cut down and you chop those up so that you can use them to build something. So now you got 5, 6, 7 pieces of wood that you could use to trade or barter, because really you're trading or bartering, same thing, for something that you need. The problem is you got to find somebody that owns a cow that needs the wood. That's where the hard part comes in. Not everybody that has a cow needs wood. Not everybody that has wood needs a cow. So in the end, after a week, a month, a year, however long, this person with the wood found the person with the cow, and both parties were in agreement that the exchange was a fair exchange, that the value of the wood was equal to or greater than the cow, and on the other side, the value of the cow was equal to or greater than the value of the wood. Once that came to be, a barter took place. And once that barter took place, both parties went away happy. The wood was used to make whatever the person needed. The cow was used for whatever the person needed. Milk, pet, whatever the hell he wanted the cow for. Basically telling you both parties were happy upon this barter. So if you flash forward a couple 100, 300, 500 years, however long you want to go back to when bartering started, we are introduced to something called cryptocurrency in the form of something called a Bitcoin. And people seem to think that it either exists and it's worth a lot of money, or it's just a bunch of doohickey that people are throwing out there and they're just trying to make money off of everybody, and it's a pyramid scheme, and oh my God, what the hell did I get myself into? Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that it's real. It's been around for a good 10 years, and it's just growing. It's growing so much so that if you got in at the inception in 2009, 2010 or so, you'd be seeing returns upwards of 5 million%. Again, as I told you in the first episode, all you guys got the little Google in your pocket. Look it up. Just type in Bitcoin. Value of return from inception to today. And you'll note that in 2008, 2009, when this system was first introduced by a gentleman called Satoshi Nakamoto, who I've looked long and hard for, because there's a lot of mystique about this person, but I've come to the conclusion that he is the originator. again, Satoshi Nakamoto, at the inception, this was an idea of having a currency be virtual, have some value, exist out in the world, and be something called cryptocurrency. Value was zero. The cryptocurrency part is secure. And I'll explain that in a little bit. So in 2008, when this came out, the value was zero. You could get a Bitcoin for nothing, but you had to work for it, which is another something that we'll talk about. This is a very, very, very complex, intrinsic subject matter that encompasses many, many different technologies. Something that's very, very, very secure, and something that we will see grow. Not only the Bitcoin, but the system behind it. The system that makes sure nobody takes your money like people seem to be doing right, left, and sideways anymore with banking. So banking's turned to the system that Bitcoin uses, which we'll talk about later. So getting back to how Bitcoin started and value-wise, when it first came out, I remember hearing about it. I remember thinking, this is just crazy. What the hell is this person talking about? So off into the world it went. And about a year later, it was worth 8/100ths of a penny. Took 100,000 of them to buy 2 pizzas. Look it up. Google. What did Bitcoin buy the first time it was used? And you'll notice that it was 2 pizzas that came back. I won't even tell you who accepted the coins. But they did. The mathematics were such that the value of the coin, it took 100,000 of them for you to buy 2 pizzas. Wow. So why is that? Why was that price put on that back in 2010? It was because somebody was willing to take the chance and saw the promise of a secure system that would allow you to, in essence, barter between a virtual currency that you earned to a good that you needed, a pizza, a car, a computer. Because believe it or not, people, if you think it's real or not, guess what? Expedia, Microsoft, Virgin Galactic, Overstock, Newegg, eGifter, Zynga, Subway, WordPress, OkCupid, Reddit, Cheap Air, and I can keep going on and on, are now accepting Bitcoins. Wow. Is it true that Bitcoins exist? Would you think that these big companies would accept a currency if it didn't exist? Think about it. Of course it exists. So, now knowing that Bitcoins exist, because I just gave you the examples, look it up. Who uses Bitcoins? You will see what I just read off, and then some come back at you. They're using it right now as we speak. Knowing now that it exists, how did something that was somebody's idea that was written as a paper as to a way of changing the way we do banking went from paper to reality? It was somebody that was smart enough to realize that there's a secure system behind it that allows you to have this virtual currency. And someday somebody will realize it, and it will become a mainstay of the worldwide economy. Not only the Bitcoin, again, the system behind it, which we'll talk in another hour, in another session, because there's just way too much to go through to try to explain to you guys. So getting back to the inception and what it's all about, cryptocurrency and Bitcoins is basically a virtual coin that has a hashtag behind it that has to go through a bunch of different systems in order to make sure that it is what it is, that it is a Bitcoin. And the way that a Bitcoin is born, if you will, or given out, is through something called mining. You have to mine data. Having to mine data costs you some money. You have to have a really, really high-end computer that uses up a lot of electricity. And right now, as I speak, mining is a one-to-one. In other words, for every Bitcoin you earn, you've spent a Bitcoin getting it. So mining is now not really becoming the best way to get Bitcoins. Again, I'll explain all of this later. This is just an overview of how all this works. Mining, what it did is it allowed upwards of 16 million of 21 million total Bitcoins ever issued to be out in the world right now. That's how many Bitcoins are out floating around. 16 million plus. So just over 4.5 million, just under 5 million Bitcoins remain to be mined or earned. And until technology catches up to where we can mine them and you realize that your return is greater than what your output, then people will get back to mining. So right now, Bitcoins are being used to trade for goods and services as an investment tool. Think of your grandma and your grandpa that hated banks. They never put money in banks. They used to keep it hidden away somewhere in the house because they didn't trust anybody. Well, that's what Bitcoin did, is it got trust back into people in the financial world because Bitcoins, from what I understand, have never, ever been broken into or been cheated upon or earned other than mining or being purchased through agencies. So it's way safer than having your money in one central location like a bank. Much like the system behind it, it's not one central computer that controls it, but many, many computers that verify data coming in that are now being used for a whole host of different things. Again, in another hour, in another day, we'll talk about this. I want to get back to the Bitcoin and the inception of it, knowing that it was only worth 8/100th of a penny back in its inception. And I'm sure you guys have heard, if not, again, Google it. By Friday of last week, it was worth $7,000, or just a little under that, per Bitcoin. So from 8/100ths of a penny, a mere 10 years ago, it's now worth $7,000 a pop. How did that happen? How can something worth nothing from an idea and an inception, how can that be valued at such a high percentage? I mean, 5 million or something percentage. It's just insane. Nowhere have you ever seen a return like that. I don't care what you do. Sell drugs, yourself, cars, property. You will never see a return like this. This is at the very inception of this. So much so that there are now probably 24 different types of coins floating around. So therein, and having said that, lies the intrinsic value of something that you cannot touch, that's virtual, that was an idea, that was proven to be a good idea. That's how the value started raising. People started believing in it. Just that simple. Along with that, I told you there's 21 million of these that were ever or will ever see the world. Only 16 million, I say only, have been used because I'm surprised that all of the 21 million haven't been. So there's a limited supply. If there's a limited supply and a high demand, automatically the price is going to go up. That's just the way things are. Remember the days when we used to go to Toys R Us or Wally World and you wanted to buy that toy for your kid and there was only 100 of them? People would kick each other's ass to get a toy because there was limited supply to the amount of demand. They could have asked 5 times the amount for that toy. They would have gotten it. People buy that stuff all the time on special. Turn around and sell it on eBay for twice as much. That's supply and demand. Really easy concept. So we get to the second part of how value gets put on it. And it's the difference between the price of something and the value of something. And a Bitcoin has its value only in as far as how you can mine it. Again, a whole different hour that I have to explain this in because it's pretty complex. But mining is a terminology in Bitcoin. Look it up. It's the energy that you're putting in it. How much electricity are you using? And that electricity is used to secure the technology behind Bitcoin. Something, again, that's going to be used worldwide. Get into it now if you want to make some money. Listen to your Uncle Zed. I've been in IT for a very, very long time, and I've never seen a technology rise so quick and be accepted by so many to where you're going to make so much money you're not going to know what to do with. So get into this technology as fast as you guys can run to learn it. It's going to include a lot of different languages that you're going to need to learn, computer languages, I mean. And I'll just give you one word, and we will talk about this in another episode because it will take many more episodes to at least try to explain this to where people can understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you this one word. Look it up. Get into it. You will have a good life. The word is blockchain. All together, blockchain. This is the technology that's being used behind the Bitcoin that secures the virtual world from going in there and creating scams, which is another portion of the price versus value of something virtual, or scams. Something gets scammed, you're not going to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, where's the value? Remember, the value is to what you believe it's worth. Having said blockchain, one of the things that gives Bitcoins more value or allows you to mine it quicker is the difficulty level of the blockchain or the technology behind it. Again, I will explain this later, but I'm just giving you an overview of why a Bitcoin or virtual nothing in January of 2009 is now worth so much money. So the utility of the currency and how to use it and store it is very important. In other words, the list that I read off earlier of all the people now accepting Bitcoins is obviously going to raise the price of the Bitcoin as far as intrinsic value of it, because you're able to buy goods from people that would otherwise not take the chance in something that's basically a stock. And I'll explain that in a little bit. It's a stock. Bitcoin's like a stock. We'll get into that in a bit. So the use of it and how to store that money is important. Like you got to run the bank and get your money. Pain in the ass. Virtual money's sitting right there in your hand, in your phone, on a piece of paper, on a USB stick. That's how you store your virtual money. Pretty cool. The perception of the public is very important. Do they believe it? Are they buying into it? New technology, the youngsters out there are going to eat it up because you guys were born with a computer in your hand. But an old fart like me, Uncle Zed, who learned this stuff when it was a bunch of gobbledygook on the screen, we never had Windows. Some of those people about my age that aren't into technology like I am, because I'm a geek, complete geek in everything I ever do, I understand it. I accept it. I give value to it. I know where it's going. Wish I would have gotten in when it was something I didn't believe in 2009, because it was basically $0. But by March 2010, it was already worth 3/100th of a penny. Doesn't seem like much, but by May, it was 1/10. By February 11th, it was worth $1. And as of last Friday, 7,000 apiece. Wow. So that brings us to the price of the Bitcoin, which is just what I explained to you. From $0 worth in 2009 to $7,000 last Friday. 2017. Okay? Mid-November. Damn. Which brings me to the point again of supply and demand, because there's no possible way that we're going to have market dilution of this money, because only 21 million shares, if you will, or bitcoins will ever exist in this world. 16 million have been used. The media picked up on it, seeing that the prices were rising, and they've been talking about bitcoins in the media for a long time, but people haven't been paying attention because either they don't understand it, they don't care about it, or they don't realize that this is the new virtual gold. Investors then picked up on it. But again, read the list. Hear the list that I just spit out a little while ago, or look it up. What corporations use bitcoins, and you'll see. The innovation of this technology is what really pumps it forward. The fact that it's ever changing, getting better, more secure, more and more of the backbone, the blockchain. Again, the technology used behind it is being used in a number of different industries. You'll see that, and you'll know that word moving forward. If you haven't heard it, hear it now, and keep your ears open. You will hear that word over and over and over being used in a whole host of different technologies and industries, which then moves into the confidence that people have in this is the way we've always done things. Something called a traditional system. The system that we use today for banking, how we move money around. Guess what? A Bitcoin's no different than the way a bank transfers money from point A to point B. All virtual. They don't go with trucks and take $5 million from point A to point B. They just ask for it, press a button, it gets accepted, it gets encrypted, it gets sent over, it gets decrypted. The money is in that bank. Exactly the same way a Bitcoin works. The difference is the backbone that is used for this is vulnerable to attacks. How many of you guys have had your credit card stolen? How many of you guys have had your identity stolen? I know I've had my credit card stolen 5 times in the past year. Just buying shit off the internet. Can't trust anybody anymore. Cannot happen with a Bitcoin. Impossible. Because you're bartering. Again, the first terminology I used in this. Between the Bitcoin that you have in your hand and the item that you want to buy at the other end. The Bitcoin, though, is something like a stock. So, being that it's like a stock, there's going to be, or there will be, legal issues, government issues. Just as an example, let's suppose that you receive some Bitcoins. By some grace of God, you got some Bitcoins. And you have that money sitting somewhere, and you know how much it's worth. You decide that you want to spend those Bitcoins to buy yourself whatever. If it's under a year that you've received that Bitcoin, you will be taxed on the amount of the worth of the Bitcoin. Let me repeat that. If you receive Bitcoins and you spend Bitcoins within the first year that you've received it, the government will tax you. If you happen to keep it longer than 365 days, the government will tax you 0 on the amount. So let's say, for instance, again, by the grace of God, somebody was nice enough to give you 100 Bitcoins. They're worth $7,000 a piece today. Do the math. Now, having said that, and having compared this to stocks, I can show you, or I can tell you actually, Wish you guys could see this, but I could tell you what the history of the Bitcoin has been since inception. I have it right in front of me. I got all the details. I know exactly what's going on with it. So, remember, in January 2009, it was an idea. It was a paper. It was just a thought. So that thought became software that was written by a mystery man, they say. But I have a feeling it was Satoshi Nakamoto, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. If you ever get a chance to hear this, I hope you do. Because it's killer technology, bro. You hit it right on the money with this one. So from zero in January 2009, it kept going steadily up. And by May of 2013, just to pick a date, it was worth $130. Unfortunately, a month before that, it was worth $266. It had been growing 5 to 10% daily. Daily. How can something grow 5% to 10% daily? I've never seen that in my life, not even in drug dealing. Not that I'm an expert at it, but from what I've read and seen, it's a pretty profitable business, but not 5-10% daily. So from 266 in April 2013, it went down to 130, steadily kept going down till June to 100. Then all of a sudden in November, it went up to 350. So from 350 that same month, by end of month, it was worth 1,200. So why does that happen? Well, there are a lot of technologies behind it, forking, splitting, all kinds of stuff that we're going to talk about within the Bitcoin community, forking being one of them, mining being another one, all kinds of weird terminologies to deal with money. But it's basically terminology dealing with the back end, the blockchain, the miners, the guys that actually earned the money, how it was split like stock. Look up stock splits or split stocks and see how people had some stocks and all of a sudden they got twice as much money in the bank. Same thing Bitcoin's gone through. It's gone through its ups and downs. From November at 1,200 to December, it went down to 600. You just lost 50% of your money. But then it got right back up to 1,000. Okay, and these are all things that are happening because of all the things I explained. Supply and demand, how much does electricity cost? How much is it costing the guy to mine it? Did he earn enough Bitcoins? Did he build enough blocks? Another terminology that we'll be talking about within the blockchain community to earn enough Bitcoins versus his expense doing it, his time, his electricity, the equipment he was using. Back in the day, there were guys that were hooking up 50, 100 computers to the internet just mining data. And we'll get into what mining data means. What are they mining? How the hell are they making money? Were they mining dirt, gold, what? We'll talk about that. It's really, really interesting. If you're just a little bit interested in technology and having an understanding of it, this would be the thing you would want to get into. Not old school stuff. This is all new school stuff. Really new school stuff. So new that people are starting to use it at the back end of different businesses, to wit, you can backtrack things if you get sick. We'll talk about that in another time, but really exciting stuff. So the value of this thing kept going up and down because of the technology getting better, the prices of electricity getting worse, the cost of mining it, the way that you earned your blocks that spit out a Bitcoin that then got split. It just kept going up and down and all around. And there was no real rhyme or reason to it. One month it was worth 600. The next month it was worth 2. 1 year it was worth 100. The next year's worth 1,000. So it was kind of like stocks. The public acceptance of it, media coming out and talking about it, thus giving the public something to be confident about, wasn't quite there. There was a lot of supply, very little demand. Many things influenced those prices. Well, here we are today with the list that I read out. Pretty much telling you guys that there's a whole host of people and businesses now wanting you to spend that money because they're willing to gamble on this stock, if you will, called Bitcoin. That's virtual, completely secure, that it is going up versus down. And we saw that happen this week. This week. In a matter of 2 weeks. Hell, let's go back a little bit. 12th of September of 17. Each coin was worth $2,900. It had gone down from 5,000 because China is now refusing to use that coin. And I'll explain that in a little bit. From September 2017 at 5,000 to November 17, 7,300. Steadily went up. It took a dip. If you got scared at 5,000 going down to 2,900 and you sold your bit stocks, you just screwed yourself out of 5,000 per profit. Hope you didn't do that. So why did China say no? Other countries are starting to kind of look at it and say, I don't know, Germany, not really liking this. If you have any inkling whatsoever about financial worldwide and how they run businesses, your money's worth something. The dollar's worth something because it's backed by something. Gold, silver, infrastructure, many different things. Countries do that. You don't just print out money and it's worth something. There has to be a back to it. So how much money do we owe the Chinese? Like trillions? Getting back to how the government taxes you, the reason why the government will not tax you if you hold on to Bitcoins for a year is because they're gambling that this money is going to be worth less than the day you got the Bitcoin. So let's go back on that. Since it's like a stock, the government's willing to take a chance that if you keep a Bitcoin longer than a year, and let's say you got the Bitcoin at $4,400, they're gambling that that Bitcoin after a year is going to go down to 2,000, that you're going to lose 50% of the value. Something that today you cannot use as a deduction because it's not considered a purchase. It's not considered anything tangible other than the value of the Bitcoin. The problem is that it's going up and up and up. And having said that, the reason why the Chinese said no to it is because if this money keeps going up and up and up, it devalues the dollar. That means the dollar isn't really worth $1 anymore. It might be only worth 80 cents. And if we owe the Chinese $1 trillion, just the interest alone that they're earning on a daily basis, which is astronomical, drops by double digits. So they keep pumping shit down our throat, the throwaway society, to keep their manufacturing going, to keep the dollar strong, to keep us spending money, so that $1 trillion that we owe them is actually worth $1 trillion. Kind of complex, but if you really look into it, that's the crux of it. That's why they're willing to not tax you after a year, because if you were to flood the market with this kind of money right now, the dollar would be worth shit. Literally. Most currencies, German, Japanese, Chinese, the three big guys that do not want this coming in are scared shitless of this new technology taking off at 7,300 a pop on the 6th of November 2017, when a mere 9 years before that it was worth hundreds of a penny a piece. So now you see where the demand, supply, the difficulty level in getting these guys out so that you can earn one. The media getting into it, investors loving it, the list that I read showing you that people are accepting it, gives it that intrinsic value of being worth so much money that if you really look into Bitcoins and just type in who made money on Bitcoins, you're going to find dudes that invested in this because they saw the future, that were high school dropouts, that are now multi-millionaires. Let me give you an example. When Satoshi Nakamoto came out with this software in 2009, he knew it was going to be a hit. He had other people helping him. He had the concept in his head. He knew that this thing was going to take off. But I believe what happened is that seeing that future be so bright, seeing that future be so big, he backed off. He actually just gave it away. It's the same thing that the inventor of the MRI machine did when he made it. He gave it away. Look how many millions of dollars this dude gave away. Same thing Satoshi Nakamoto did with the Bitcoin. The difference was that he had already earned 1 million Bitcoins out of the 21 million through the technology that he built by mining those coins, which is something we'll talk about in another time. He was able to mine 1 million of them before he got out. A mere 1 year later, because at the inception it was a lot easier to mine a Bitcoin. The technology matched the difficulty level, matched the cost, and it was well worth you mining coins because you were making money. Even at 8/100th of a penny, you were still coming out ahead. So having said that, Mr. Nakamoto owns 1 million of those. And at 7,300 a pop, I believe that would be right around 7 billion. He was worth 6.1 billion on 21st of October, and at 6th of November he's worth 7.3. Quite possibly one of the richest men in the world that isn't being recognized because people just don't get what the hell Bitcoin is. Well, I'm trying to explain this to you in the simplest way I can so that people can kind of get an idea and maybe hook into this and use it to benefit their future. Because I'm telling you right now, it's not just Bitcoin that's out there. There's a whole host of people that have virtual money. Just type in virtual money and you'll see that there's probably 100 different exchanges, which is another word you use in Bitcoin, because exchanges are the way that you exchange Bitcoins from point A to point B. They charge you a fee. Well, I could do it from point A to point B, just handing somebody a piece of paper and giving them my hash code, which is something that's built in the blockchain that spits out the Bitcoin that you own, that proves the value of what you have in your pocket. It could be on a piece of paper, on a USB stick, like I said before, on your computer, on your phone. You could change that into a barcode and have somebody scan it. That's how they're using it over the internet. Building new technology over the top of a little bit older technology that's killer, and actually being able to use it for something. Instead of just scanning shit in the store and figuring out what the price is and what's in it. Wait until I start talking about what blockchain could do for food, transportation, hospitals, banking. This is the new technology that's coming out. Servers are dead. Dead. All the biggies are looking at blockchain technology that's behind this. And that's what gives us the value, the security. Nobody has ever broken into this. Nobody has stolen a Bitcoin. Okay? There may have been a blip, from what I understand at the beginning, where somebody doubled up their ID and got some free Bitcoins. Very few. As compared to the, from last I heard, 16 some odd billion dollars worth of this stuff floating around being transacted as we speak on a daily basis. People are using this going back and forth because if you were to have bought something at the value at the 21st of October 2017, it was worth $6,000, $6,200 a pop. And I used my Bitcoins to buy a car worth $60,000. And I gave the dude enough coins at 6,100 to make that $60,000. You guys figure out the math. I know it in my head, but let's see if you guys can do it. I doubt it. You guys all need your little phone and your electronical gizmo just to do basic math. Not knocking you, it's just the way it is. So let's say I sold him at 6,200, and I gave him enough coins to buy that $62,000 car. Just make it easier for you guys. The dude that received the coins, he has the coins now at 7,300. 2 weeks later. So not only did that homie make money selling his car, but he got a currency that went up by double digits in 2 weeks. Again, it's like stock. By next week, it may drop 50% because the stock split or the Bitcoin split. There was a fork in the road, it's called. Whereas you're processing this through the backbone under blockchain or something that's called forking happens. And when forking, like what you used to eat, by the way, and if forking happens, then the value changes dramatically. If a country like China says we don't want it, you saw it go from $5,000 to 2,900, but then it shot back up because China, kind of decided maybe we should kind of stick with it. These are things that I talked about: media, investors, supply and demand. It's out there, folks. It's ready to be gotten. It's ready to be used. It's basically what a Bitcoin is. It's just a cryptocurrency, which means it's a currency that has security under it. Cryptography would be the correct terminology. And that is what produces a hash code, a bunch of gobbledygook numbers, alphanumeric, big long alphanumeric string that has to be proven over many, many systems. And it checks it, and if everything's cool and everything's okay, it's accepted. So in order for you to earn or mine a Bitcoin, it may take you upwards of a month for you to build enough blocks for it to be proven 126 times, I believe. 6 times you can get part of a Bitcoin. 126 or 29 now is where you get a Bitcoin. And that processing power, because it has to crunch all kinds of data behind it that we'll talk about in another hour, get you that Bitcoin. So you can see with the supply, demand, the difficulty level is getting harder and harder now because things are getting tighter and tighter as far as making sure nobody can get in, that the hash codes, that gobbledygook that comes out is correct. And that's the only thing that's out there that proves that you have that value in your hand or printed out or on a USB stick or on a scannable barcode, because those are all ways that you could spend the money. Very simple. It's just a very simple transaction. It's like having a big pot of gold. You can't see it, can't touch it, but you know it's there, and you're just picking some out and giving it to somebody, and they're giving you something in return. Going right back to where I started. Basically bartering, people. Bartering in the 21st century. That's now called cryptocurrency. You're going to hear more and more of it. It's based on something called Bitcoin. There's way more than Bitcoin out there. I'm not even going to get into it in this hour because it's just too much to talk about. But just look it up. What alternatives to Bitcoin are there? And you will see a list of at least 20 to 25 virtual coins or cryptocurrency running around out there in different values. All I can tell you is that the one I believe in, because it's been proven over time, is Bitcoin. Not saying that the other ones are good, bad, or indifferent. Just don't know enough about them to give you guys information. So I'm not going to tell you if they're good or bad until I figure it out. So I hate to give you something that's just enough for you to hang yourself and then you come back and blame me for it. I'd feel real bad about it. But having said that, you have to be careful with scams. If and when you start looking into this, if you happen to sign up at any site that uses Bitcoins or any type of cryptocurrency or virtual currency, be highly aware of scams. Scams on these things are huge, and that's one of the downfalls. Something that has not really happened with the Bitcoin because it's pretty secure. But a scam usually starts off, if you hook up to investors that are telling you they have Bitcoins and, they have cryptocurrency of other types other than Bitcoins, whatever. You have to be very careful about them telling you that they have a business that has already mined those coins and they're just ready to rock and roll and sell them to you. Those are called pyramid schemes. And that's why people didn't believe in Bitcoins when it started, because it kind of sounded like a pyramid scheme. They didn't realize that there was a whole lot of work that went behind it for you to earn one single coin through the technology, through mining, through things that we'll talk about in other episodes. So, the last thing I'm going to tell you for this hour is I highly, highly, highly advise you guys to look into Bitcoins, understand what cryptocurrency means, because that, whether you like it or not, is definitely going to be your future. I will see it in my lifetime, and I'll be lucky to get another 30 summers. But I will see it in my lifetime, and you young folks out there, it's going to be your future. That will be your wallet. It will have cryptocurrency in it. The backbone behind it. Look at the technology that it uses. Because having that technology behind it, proven technology behind it, blockchain, is what you want to get into if you're even thinking about getting into IT or anything to do with computers. I've been in it 30 years. I've seen it grow from nothing to what it is today, with all kinds of single points of failure called servers. Why do you think people are getting hacked all over? Look up blockchain. Try to find something or a site that will explain it to you in a layman's term so that you can kind of get the gist of it, so that you don't get confused and back off of it, because I want you guys to pursue it. Learn from something simple, then get into the difficult if you're really interested in it. But learn about the blockchain and how it's going to change your world starting this century. Guaranteed. Servers are dead. They're dead. Single point of failure. If it goes down, business shut down. If somebody hacks in, they got all your stuff. Hear about Equifax? That was a single point of failure because one server was not patched with a free piece of software, because they run free software to keep all your data in a vault called a server. Well, one guy hacked in, upwards of 200 million people have all their shit out on the internet. That will never, ever happen with blockchaining. Again, look it up. Uncle Zed is out. Hoping that all you guys have a great day and a great week. If you guys have comments on anything I spit out, at the Uncle Zed Hour on Twitter, look me up. Go ahead and put in your comments, good, bad, indifferent. I'd like to hear from you guys. I need to gauge what I'm spitting out makes sense to you guys. You like it, you're not. I don't care. I got a thick skin. Don't worry about it. Say what's on your mind. Just try not to be too big a dick. Uncle Zed out.